Chosen one, you will not believe what heaven just did for you. Stop scrolling. Read slowly. This one is different. Something shifted. Not out there somewhere far away. Right here, in your actual life, in ways you have not fully noticed yet. Jesus says, before you dismiss this as another empty promise, give it 60 seconds. That is all this asks of you. Here is what heaven did. Quietly, without announcement, something you have been praying for, hoping for, almost giving up on, has already begun moving. You felt it, did you not? That strange flicker of hope earlier today, the one you quickly explained away as nothing. That was not nothing. Think back. Something small happened recently. A message. A thought. A door that opened slightly when you expected it to stay shut. You noticed it and then moved on too quickly. Go back to that moment now. Really look at it. Here is why this matters. Heaven rarely announces itself with fireworks. It moves quietly, in small signs easy to miss if you are not paying attention. You have been paying attention today. That is exactly why you are still reading this. Here is something worth understanding about the specific thing you have been hoping for. You know exactly what it is. It surfaced in your mind before you finished the first sentence of this message. Name it. Even silently. Whatever it is, hold it steady in your mind as you keep reading, because everything that follows is speaking directly to it. Here is the part that will surprise you. What heaven did was not what you expected. It rarely is. You have been picturing a specific outcome, a specific shape this blessing should take. Heaven has been building something different, something better suited to who you actually are now, not who you were when you first started praying for this. Release the specific picture you have been holding. What is coming may not match it exactly. That does not mean it is smaller. It often means it is larger, wiser, more precisely fitted to your actual life than what you originally imagined. Here is something worth sitting with. You almost missed this message entirely. Something nearly pulled you away before you opened it. Notice that you did not let it. That refusal to scroll past mattered more than you realize. Jesus says, that same stubborn hope that kept you here today is the exact thing heaven has been responding to. Here is what happens next, if you let it. Nothing dramatic today, necessarily. But something shifts internally, a quiet certainty replacing the quiet doubt that has been living in your chest for longer than you have admitted. That shift alone is worth everything this message has already offered you. Here is something that was not planned when this message began, something surfacing only now, insisting on being spoken. Jesus has something more to say. He says this. There is a specific person connected to what heaven has been doing for you, someone whose name just crossed your mind without you fully choosing it. Do not dismiss that name. It was not random. Here is a question worth asking honestly. Have you actually thanked heaven for what has already been given, or have you been so focused on what has not yet arrived that you missed what already has? Look around your life right now, honestly. Something good is already present, something you stopped noticing because you were waiting for something bigger instead. Notice it. Name it. Let gratitude interrupt the waiting, even briefly. Here is something worth understanding about doubt, since it likely surfaced somewhere in this reading. A voice questioning whether any of this genuinely applies to you, whether it is simply generic encouragement sent to everyone equally. Notice how quickly that doubt arrived. Ask yourself honestly whether it reflects careful thought, or whether it is simply protecting you from hoping too much, the way doubt often does right when hope finally starts to feel real again. Here is something worth understanding about timing specifically. This message did not reach you randomly today. Something aligned precisely to bring these words in front of you at exactly this moment in your life, not a week earlier, not a month later. Trust that timing. It was not an accident. Here is something further worth understanding about what you have been carrying. Exhaustion. Waiting. A quiet weariness from hoping so long without seeing the outcome you prayed for. That weariness is real. It deserves acknowledgement, not dismissal. But here is the truth underneath it. The waiting was never wasted. Every difficult day you pushed through, every moment you kept believing even when belief felt thin, was quietly building toward exactly this moment. Here is something worth understanding about the specific shape gratitude takes when it finally meets genuine relief. It is not loud. It is not performative. It is often a quiet exhale, a softening in your shoulders, a single tear you did not expect. If that feeling is rising in you right now, let it. Do not push it down the way you have pushed down so much else recently. Here is something worth understanding about what comes next practically. Heaven's movement rarely replaces your own effort entirely. It clears the path. You still walk it. Consider what one small step forward might look like today, a step that honors what has already shifted rather than waiting passively for everything to resolve on its own without your participation. Here is something worth understanding about the specific fear that might be rising alongside the hope. Fear that trusting this too fully will lead to disappointment again, the way it may have before. That fear is understandable. It does not need to win. Hold both simultaneously if you need to. Hope and caution can coexist. What matters is that you do not let caution silence the hope entirely. Here is something worth understanding about your own role in receiving what heaven has been preparing. Receiving requires openness, not just waiting. Consider whether you have been subtly bracing against good news, protecting yourself from disappointment by refusing to fully believe something good could actually be happening. If that describes you, this message is asking you, gently, to lower that guard, even slightly, even just for today. Here is something worth understanding about the people around you who may notice a shift in you before you fully notice it yourself. A lightness in your voice. A steadiness that was not there last week. Let them notice. You do not need to explain everything yet. Here is something worth understanding about the specific weight of unspoken prayers, the ones you have never actually said aloud, even to yourself. If something has remained unspoken inside you, consider naming it now, silently or aloud, however feels right. There is real power in finally putting words to what has only existed as a vague ache until now. Here is something worth understanding about patience throughout this particular season. What heaven has begun does not necessarily complete itself instantly. Some of it is still unfolding, quietly, beneath the surface, the way a seed continues developing underground long before anything visible appears above it. Trust that invisible process. It is still happening even on days it feels like nothing is. Here is something worth understanding about the specific role support plays right now. Consider sharing at least part of what you are feeling with someone you trust, someone capable of celebrating alongside you rather than dismissing what you are sensing as wishful thinking. You do not need to carry this quiet hope entirely alone. Here is something worth naming clearly about the specific kind of blessing that has been developing. Maybe it is a relationship healing quietly, in ways neither of you have said out loud yet. Maybe it is a financial door opening after a long, difficult season of scarcity. Maybe it is your own body finally recovering after something that felt endless. Maybe it is simply peace, real peace, returning to a mind that has been anxious for far too long. Whichever one resonates, notice it. Let it be specific rather than vague. Maybe it is a career shift you did not see coming, an opportunity assembling itself quietly behind the scenes while you kept showing up, unaware of exactly how close it actually was. Maybe it is a reconciliation, someone you thought was permanently gone from your life beginning to reappear in small, unexpected ways. Maybe it is simply the return of joy itself, something you genuinely thought you had lost the capacity to feel. Take a moment. Let the true answer surface, even if it surprises you. Here is something worth understanding about why heaven often works this way, quietly, before anything becomes visible. If everything arrived instantly, fully formed, you would never build the faith required to actually sustain it once it came. The waiting was not punishment. It was preparation, whether you recognized it as that or not. Think of a farmer planting a seed. The seed does not become visible fruit overnight. It requires unseen root development first, weeks of invisible growth beneath the soil before anything breaks the surface. Your particular waiting followed this same pattern, even during the stretches that felt like nothing was happening at all. Here is something worth remembering about every difficult night you have already survived leading up to this one. Each one mattered. Each one built something in you that could not have been built any other way. You are not the same person who first started praying for this. You are stronger, steadier, more capable of holding what is coming than you were when this all began. Think back to who you were when this particular hope first began. Notice how much you have grown since then, even in ways unrelated to this specific prayer. That growth was not wasted, even during the moments it felt like nothing was moving forward at all. Here is something worth understanding about the specific role that gratitude plays in actually receiving what heaven has prepared. Gratitude is not simply a polite response after the fact. It is often the very thing that opens the door wider, allowing more good to enter than fear or doubt ever could. Consider what specific gratitude you can offer right now, today, even before everything has fully unfolded. Let that gratitude become part of how you receive what continues to develop. Try naming 3 specific things right now, out loud if possible, that you are genuinely grateful for in this exact moment, separate entirely from whatever you are still hoping for. This practice tends to shift something internally, opening space for more good to be noticed and received. Here is something worth understanding about the specific timing of your own readiness. You may have wondered why this particular blessing took so long to arrive. Consider that timing was never about heaven being slow. It was about you becoming ready to actually hold what was coming, without it slipping through your fingers the way it might have earlier. Picture receiving this exact blessing years ago, before you had developed the wisdom, patience, or maturity you now carry. Would you have handled it as well then as you can now? For most people, honestly, the answer is no. The delay served a genuine purpose, even though it did not feel that way while you were living through it. Here is something worth understanding about the people who doubted alongside you, or perhaps doubted your hope entirely. Their doubt does not diminish what is actually true. It simply reflects their own limited view, not the actual, unfolding reality of what heaven has been quietly building on your behalf. Release any need to prove this to them. What matters is what you know to be true within your own heart, regardless of who else believes it yet. Here is something worth understanding about the specific weight lifted the moment you finally believe this fully, rather than holding it at arm's length out of fear of disappointment. That weight has been heavier than you realized, carried quietly, day after day, as you tried to protect yourself from hoping too much. Let it go now. Let yourself hope fully, without the usual guard raised halfway. Consider what it would physically feel like to release that guard completely, even just for the next few minutes. Notice your shoulders. Notice your breathing. Often the body registers this release before the mind fully catches up to it. Here is something worth understanding about the specific role your own words play moving forward. What you speak about this situation matters. Consider speaking with expectation rather than continued doubt, not denying genuine difficulty, but choosing language that reflects the trust this message has been encouraging throughout its content. Notice the specific phrases you have been using recently to describe this situation to yourself and others. If they have leaned heavily toward hopelessness or resignation, consider gently shifting them, even slightly, toward language that reflects the genuine movement already underway. Here is something worth understanding about the specific danger of comparing your timeline to someone else's. Someone else's blessing arriving faster does not mean yours is somehow less real or less significant. Your particular timing has been shaped by your particular life, your particular readiness, your particular journey. Release that comparison entirely. Here is something worth understanding about the specific role rest plays throughout this unfolding season. You do not need to strive anxiously to make this happen faster. Some of the most important work now is simply trusting, resting in what has already been set into motion, rather than trying to control every detail of exactly how or when it fully arrives. Consider what genuine rest would look like for you specifically during this particular waiting period, distinct from anxious busyness disguised as productive effort. Sometimes the most faithful thing you can do is simply be still, allowing what has already begun to continue unfolding at its own genuine pace. Here is something worth understanding about the specific fear of losing this blessing once it arrives. That fear sometimes shows up alongside genuine hope, whispering that something this good cannot possibly last. Notice that fear if it arises. It does not need to control your experience of what heaven has given you. Consider naming this fear directly if it has surfaced, rather than letting it quietly undermine your joy from the shadows. Fear named tends to lose much of its power. Fear left unspoken tends to grow larger than it genuinely deserves to be. Here is something worth understanding about the specific role forgiveness might play in fully receiving this blessing. If old resentment, whether toward yourself or someone else, has been quietly occupying space in your heart, consider whether releasing it might create even more room for what is arriving now. Think about how much internal space resentment actually occupies, energy quietly consumed by holding onto something that continues to hurt you more than the person or situation it was originally directed toward. Releasing that resentment, even gradually, tends to free considerable space for genuine joy to finally settle in more fully. Here is something worth understanding about specific past disappointments that might make this particular hope feel risky. You have been let down before. That history is real. It does not automatically predict what happens this time. Let this moment stand on its own, separate from previous disappointments that came from different circumstances entirely. Consider what specific past disappointment keeps surfacing as you read this, quietly warning you against hoping too fully. Name it. Then consider, honestly, whether that particular past experience genuinely predicts this current situation, or whether it simply feels similar because both involve the vulnerable act of hoping. Here is something worth understanding about the specific way heaven tends to work through ordinary people and ordinary moments, rather than only dramatic, unmistakable miracles. Someone reaching out at exactly the right time. An opportunity appearing precisely when needed. A thought crossing your mind that turns out to matter more than you expected. These are not coincidences. They are heaven working through the ordinary fabric of your actual life. Think back through the recent weeks and try to identify at least one moment that, in hindsight, may have carried more significance than you initially realized. A conversation. A small act of kindness from a stranger. A door that opened when you least expected it. These moments accumulate quietly, forming a pattern only visible once you deliberately pause to look for it. Here is something worth understanding about the specific significance of today, whatever day this happens to be for you. This particular day did not have to include this particular message. Something aligned specifically to bring these words in front of you now, at exactly this point in your unfolding story. Consider everything that had to happen for you to be reading these exact words at this exact moment. The mood you happen to be in. The pause you happen to take. None of it was strictly necessary, and yet here you are. Let that quiet alignment carry a little more weight than you might normally give it. Here is something worth understanding about what happens next if you choose to trust this fully. Not passive waiting, but active, hopeful engagement with your actual daily life, continuing to show up, continuing to do your part, while trusting that heaven continues doing what only heaven can do. Consider what specific area of your daily life might benefit from this same combination of active effort and genuine trust. Perhaps a habit worth building. Perhaps a relationship worth continuing to nurture. Whatever it is, let today's clarity extend into that area as well, rather than remaining isolated only to the specific blessing already discussed. Here is something worth understanding about the specific role community plays in sustaining this kind of hope. Consider sharing this moment with someone who will genuinely celebrate alongside you, someone whose faith might strengthen your own during moments when doubt tries to creep back in. Think about who specifically has walked alongside you through the waiting so far, someone who genuinely understands the significance of what this message has been describing. Consider reaching out to them today, sharing at least part of what you are sensing, allowing their genuine support to strengthen your own continued trust. Here is something worth understanding about the specific record you might keep of this particular season. Brief notes capturing what you are noticing, what you are grateful for, what continues to unfold. This record becomes valuable later, especially during future seasons of waiting, reminding you that heaven has moved for you before, and will again. Consider starting this record today, even with just a single sentence describing what you believe heaven has done. Return to it periodically, adding new observations as they occur. Over time, this simple record becomes powerful evidence of a pattern, proof that this particular kind of quiet movement has genuinely, repeatedly occurred in your life. Here is something worth understanding about the specific role that surrender plays throughout this entire process. Surrender not as giving up, but as releasing your grip on controlling every single detail of exactly how this unfolds. Genuine surrender often feels counterintuitive, especially after a long season of trying to force outcomes through sheer effort and worry alone. Consider what it would mean to release just a little more control today, trusting that the same care that has already been quietly at work does not require your constant, anxious oversight in order to continue moving forward. Here is something worth understanding about the specific danger of testing this too rigidly, watching closely for exact confirmation before allowing yourself to believe. Faith of this kind rarely works well under that kind of pressure. It tends to grow more naturally when given room to breathe, rather than being interrogated constantly for proof. Consider loosening that grip, allowing belief to develop gradually rather than demanding immediate, complete certainty before permitting yourself to feel any hope at all. Here is something worth understanding about the specific relationship between this moment and your broader life story. This particular blessing, whatever form it ultimately takes, does not exist in isolation. It connects to everything that came before it, every difficult season, every quiet act of perseverance, every moment you chose to keep believing even when believing felt genuinely difficult. Consider how this current moment fits into that larger story, not as a random, disconnected event, but as a meaningful continuation of everything you have already lived and survived. Here is something worth understanding about the specific weight that comparison to others' blessings might be adding right now, comparing the size, speed, or visibility of what heaven is doing for you against what appears to be happening for someone else. That comparison rarely serves you well. Release it fully. Your particular blessing is shaped specifically for your particular life, not measured against anyone else's timeline or circumstances. Here is something worth understanding about the specific role your own body plays throughout this process, since genuine peace often registers physically before it fully registers mentally. Notice, right now, whether your body feels any different than it did when this message began. A little lighter, perhaps. A little less tense. That physical shift, however small, is real information, evidence that something within you is already responding to what this message has been offering. Here is something worth understanding about the specific significance of consistency in your continued gratitude practice moving forward, rather than experiencing gratitude only once, in this single reading, and then letting it fade as ordinary life resumes. Consider what small, sustainable practice might help you continue noticing and naming blessing consistently, not only during moments of dramatic realization like this one, but throughout the ordinary rhythm of your everyday life. Here is something worth understanding about the specific role hope plays in shaping how you actually experience your days, even before the full blessing has arrived. Hope tends to change how a person moves through ordinary moments, adding a quality of expectation and lightness that fear and doubt simply cannot provide. Notice whether this shift is already beginning within you, even in small, subtle ways, as you continue reading through this reflection. Here is something worth understanding about the specific role continued prayer or reflection might play throughout the coming days, not as anxious repetition seeking reassurance, but as ongoing, genuine connection, continuing to acknowledge and engage with whatever heaven continues doing in your life. Consider setting aside even a few quiet minutes each day specifically for this kind of continued connection, allowing your trust to deepen gradually through consistent, intentional practice rather than remaining dependent solely on today's particular moment of clarity. Here is something worth understanding about the specific significance of remembering this exact feeling, the one present in you right now, as you continue moving through the coming days and weeks. This feeling, this particular quality of hope and trust, is worth returning to deliberately, especially during moments when ordinary life's noise threatens to drown it out again. Consider what specific trigger or reminder might help you return to this feeling intentionally, whether a specific phrase, a specific object, or simply the memory of this exact moment of reading these particular words. Here is something worth understanding about the specific role that patience with the process plays, distinct from patience with the outcome itself. You may already trust that the outcome is genuinely coming. The process of continuing to wait well, continuing to trust well, day after day, still requires its own kind of patience and intentional practice. Consider extending yourself grace for however this process actually unfolds, rather than requiring yourself to maintain perfect, unwavering faith throughout every single day between now and the moment this blessing becomes fully, visibly complete. Here is something worth understanding about the specific role continued generosity might play throughout this season, even while you yourself continue waiting for your own particular blessing to fully unfold. Consider whether there is a small way you might extend generosity to someone else right now, sharing encouragement, support, or simple kindness, even amid your own continued waiting. This kind of generosity often deepens rather than depletes your own capacity for hope, creating a cycle of goodness that extends beyond your own individual circumstances. Here is a final consideration before this message moves toward its close. What heaven did for you was not random, was not distant, was not disconnected from your actual, lived reality. It was specific. It was personal. It was timed precisely for this exact moment in your life. Release whatever doubt remains. Let yourself simply receive this, fully, without immediately needing to explain or justify it. Before this message ends, take one slow breath. Name, specifically, what you believe heaven has been doing for you. Let yourself feel whatever gratitude or relief rises in response, without rushing past it toward whatever comes next in your day. This does not need to feel dramatic. It simply needs to feel true. Trust that this message reached you today for a reason. Something in you already knew that the moment you stopped scrolling. Here is something worth understanding about the specific role laughter and joy might play right now, not reserved only for once everything has fully arrived, but available even now, in this exact, still unfolding moment. Consider allowing yourself a genuine smile, a moment of lightness, simply because something good is genuinely underway. Here is something worth understanding about the specific significance of sharing this exact message with someone else who might genuinely need it today. Consider who in your life might benefit from this same reminder, that heaven moves quietly, that waiting is not wasted, that hope deserves to be trusted rather than constantly guarded against. Here is something more worth understanding before this message truly ends, since one more piece has been waiting to be said. Consider the specific version of you, 1 year from today, having genuinely trusted this fully rather than letting doubt quietly steal it back. Picture that version clearly. Notice how they carry themselves differently. Notice what worries no longer occupy the same space they once did. That version of you is not fantasy. It is the natural result of choosing, today, to believe rather than continuing to brace against disappointment. Here is something worth understanding about the specific relationship between faith and patience throughout this unfolding season. Faith says something good is already in motion. Patience says it will take the time it genuinely needs to fully arrive. Both are required together. Neither alone is sufficient. Think of these two qualities as partners rather than competitors, each one supporting the other throughout the remainder of this particular season. Faith without patience often turns into anxious demanding. Patience without faith often turns into passive resignation. Together, they create genuine, sustained trust. Here is something worth understanding about the specific moments ahead when doubt will try to return, because it will. A difficult day. A setback that seems to contradict everything this message just offered. These moments do not erase what heaven has already begun. They are simply part of the ordinary texture of waiting for something significant to fully unfold. When those moments arrive, return to this message. Return to what you named as your own personal blessing earlier. Let it steady you again. Here is something worth understanding about the specific role small, consistent gratitude plays throughout the coming days. Rather than waiting for the full blessing to arrive before feeling thankful, consider practicing gratitude now, in small, specific ways, for whatever pieces have already become visible. This ongoing gratitude tends to sustain hope far more effectively than waiting silently for a single, dramatic moment of complete fulfillment. Here is something worth understanding about the specific danger of trying to control exactly how this unfolds. Heaven's timing and methods rarely match human expectation precisely. Release your grip on the specific how and when, while still trusting fully in the what, the genuine goodness already set into motion on your behalf. Here is something worth understanding about the specific role your own continued effort plays alongside this unfolding blessing. Trusting heaven does not mean abandoning your own responsibility. It means continuing to show up faithfully in your ordinary daily life, doing what is genuinely yours to do, while trusting heaven with everything beyond your control. Here is something worth understanding about specific relationships that might shift as this blessing continues unfolding. Some people will celebrate genuinely alongside you. Others, for their own reasons, may struggle. Prepare yourself gently for both possibilities, without needing either reaction to validate what you already know to be true. Here is something worth understanding about the specific quality of peace available to you right now, regardless of exactly how much of this blessing has already become visible. That peace does not require complete fulfillment first. It is available now, in this exact moment, simply through trusting what has already been set into motion. Here is something worth understanding about specific prayers you have not yet spoken aloud, gratitude not yet expressed, hope not yet fully named. Consider speaking these things now, whether in prayer, in writing, or simply in quiet, private reflection. Naming them tends to deepen their reality within you, making the waiting considerably more bearable. Here is something worth understanding about the specific significance of continuing to show up faithfully, even during the parts of this season that still feel uncertain or incomplete. Faithfulness during the waiting matters just as much as celebration once the waiting ends. Here is something worth understanding about specific small signs you might notice in the coming days, easy to overlook if you are not paying attention. A specific conversation. A specific opportunity. A specific feeling of unexpected peace during a moment that would normally have felt anxious. Notice these. They are evidence that what began quietly continues quietly moving forward. Here is something worth understanding about the specific role celebration plays even now, before everything has fully arrived. Consider marking this particular moment in some small, personal way, acknowledging that something genuinely significant has already begun, regardless of how much remains still unfolding. This message reached you today for a reason. Trust that. Carry it with you. And when you are ready, not before, not because anyone told you to, but when you are genuinely ready, take your next step. Deep down, you already know what that step is. Thank you for receiving this message today. Be gentle with yourself as you continue, one grateful, honest step at a time.